Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. A few days ago, Aptera put out their October 2023 update, and it was a very substantive update, and I thought I'd go over it with you guys and kind of give you some sort of inside information from the ambassador meeting. I was going to make a video about the ambassador meeting earlier, but Aptera asked me to hold off on doing that until this public update video was released, and then I could kind of go over the update video with you guys and give you some context from the ambassadors meeting. So we'll do that. All right. So anyway, I thought it was a good one. So let's go through it together. At the beginning, Sarah just talks about the solar summer events and how well they went. And thanks everyone for their support. But here's where we get to the meat of the update.
Our relationship with CPC Group, and we're thrilled to share that over 60% of the essential equipment and tools used in the process of making.
Okay, so she says 60%. It's actually 66% because at the ambassador meeting, they said that 4 out of the 6 major body parts have been validated and made, and they've already pressed out the pieces and made sure that pieces are up to spec. So there's 2 more left. We know one of them is the tub. The tub is the largest and most complex body part, and that one is so big that CPC is not able to make it themselves, and so they're outsourcing the production of that. And that should be done in the next week or 2. And then after that, they can start pressing out pieces, and then they will validate the pieces. And they'll talk about how that validation happens later on in this video.
Aptera's body and carbon have been completed and commissioned. Take a second to nerd out with me on solar vehicle manufacturing and find out exactly what I'm talking about. The stamping dies and post-process tooling you see here are used in the process of forming carbon fiber SMC, the lightweight and ultra-strong material often used in supercars, into Aptera's body parts. The stamping dies are specialized tools made of hardened steel designed to press carbon fiber SMC with up to 5,000 tons of force into precise forms for our body panels. The post-process tooling refers to the...
Okay, so Sarah's talking about CFSMC. Obviously, this is fiberglass SMC, and that's why they had a little text here earlier saying that it's glass fiber SMC. And you guys remember SMC stands for sheet molding compound. And the way this thing works is you put that compound in there. It's kind of a semi-solid material. And then when you compress it with enough force, it kind of oozes out and fills the voids. Now you see like there's excess material here that they need to trim off. And so that part is waste of the material. And they said that that waste is about 1%. And that's in contradiction to their old honeycomb structure. They said that they wasted about 30% of the material just because of the processing method. And so 1% waste is significantly better, obviously. And when they trim that off, they can reuse that material and push it into the next mold and use that material to push out the next piece. And you can do that up to 6 times before the material loses its structural integrity, and you can no longer use it for structural parts, but you can still use it for non-structural parts. So even the 1% that's, quote, wasted isn't truly wasted. And so that tells us that that manufacturing method is very, very efficient. And I think that plays in well with the whole efficiency ethos of Aptera.
Additional equipment used after the initial pressing to refine and complete parts for their intended use in our solar EVs. These tools are currently in action, pressing the parts for our production intent builds, or as we like to call them around here.
Okay, so remember a few days ago, or was it a week or 2 ago, Aptera released a picture that was kind of a close-up of this piece, asking people to guess what it was. Obviously, looking at this, we know that this is the solar rear hatch. And because this is such a large piece, they made it out of CFSMCs to give it bigger strength and rigidity. But even with that, they realized they needed some kind of fins or supports to keep the thing rigid. And this pattern here was evidently Jason Hill's idea. He said, if we're going to put some ribs in there to try to give it structural rigidity and torsional rigidity, why don't we put in a pattern that looks cool from the inside rather than just having ribs? So we got this pattern, which I think looks really cool. So thumbs up to Jason for that. And you can see here that the solar panel would just nest in right here along this groove. And here's where the the third brake light is, and here's where the hatch, the latching mechanism would go. But anyway, I think this is a really cool looking piece.
PI builds. Our first builds will be progress builds as we add more and more of the production intent items. This allows us to ramp up to full PI builds.
So that is their new language. They're calling it PI builds, so production intent builds. They're not using the term delta anymore. So they're going to go with production intent. So that's their new terminology.
PI builds are the vehicles that our team will use for further testing and validation of many parts and systems over the coming months, including suspension, brakes, airbags, thermal, and more. The first stage in making our PI builds is creating the body in carbon, or the BINC.
Okay, so what they said is they're going to make 16 of these production intent builds. That's quite a few. And so these pieces that we're looking at right now are probably the pieces that are going to go into the 16 production intent vehicles. And like Sarah talked about, they're going to use them to validate a bunch of things. And we'll go over it by looking at their blog post. And you can see again here, the little residual material. They haven't trimmed off the excess here. But again, this trimmed excess can be reused. And so this looks like the doors. I think this is a door on the other. Well, maybe these are the two doors on one side. I'm not sure what this is. Tell me what you guys think this is. And this is definitely the hood. Obviously, this is the hood piece right here. I don't know what that is. Tell me what you guys think this is in the middle here.
Consists of the 6 main parts for Aptera's body, which is in progress now. Then, a coordinate measuring machine is used to inspect and validate.
Okay, so coordinate measuring machine. I never heard of this thing before, so I looked it up. A coordinate measuring machine is basically a machine that does a 3D scan of a part with micrometer to nanometer precision. So some of them are accurate down to the micrometer, and some of them are accurate down to the nanometer, which is a billionth of a meter, which is ridiculous. So that tells you the type, the precision of validation that they're doing for this piece. A lot of these coordinate measuring machines use a physical probe that kind of slides over the part, but they can also be done contactless with like laser. So I think this looks like it's probably a contactless system using a laser, but I'm not sure. But I think this gives us a lot of confidence that they're doing this kind of validation on the part. So they designed the part in CAD, and then they designed the dies to make that part that's designed in CAD. And now after they physically make the part, they're going to measure it down to micrometer precision to make sure it matches with their specifications of what was drawn in CAD. And that means that things are going to fit together really well. The tolerances are very, very tight. And because there's no thermal expansion that we need to worry about, like in metal, well, there is thermal expansion, but much less compared to metal. When this thing is bonded together into the Aptera body, it should be rock solid and fit together extremely well. They talk about panel gaps being millimeters. Well, the panel, these quote panels are within micrometers.
Validate these parts for thickness and surface tolerance. Also currently happening. Finally, we'll bond them together to form the full BINC and validate the full structure again. But this time we're looking for tall.
Okay, so this is a picture that is very similar to that other picture they released when they first showed some production intent stamped parts. And this paper was kind of blurred out, and we wondered why it was blurred out. Well, now you can see there's really no reason to have blurred it out. It says here, per via del Narza. I don't know what this is. If anyone knows Italian and thinks that that means something in Italian, let us know in the comments below. But then it says client Aptera, then part numbers, just internal part numbers. And the description is side panel Aptera left hand, and then side panel Aptera right hand, I believe it says there. It says quantity, looks like lambda 7. I don't know if that's supposed to be 17, lambda 7, or just 7. But anyways, nothing too unusual in these papers.
Tolerance of the body closures. What's cool is that these body parts you're looking at now have already gone through a thorough validation process. In fact, those green stickers you see mean they've passed the test.
Okay, so this means that they've already stamped out the parts and gone to that coordinate measuring machine, and it meets the criteria. And so 4 out of the 6 major parts have gone through that, and they just have 2 more to do.
And can be used to make our PI builds. Let's check in with Chris and Steve in Italy for a behind-the-scenes look.
Hey, I'm Chris.
I'm Steve.
We're here with the amazing team at CPC, looking at this wonderful 5,000-ton press, and we'll be producing the parts for your Aptera.
We had a chance to look at some of the first parts up close and the lights on them. I'll show you nice pictures of them, but it's amazing to see groups of work come to fruition.
And these aren't just pre-production parts or prototype parts or validation parts. These are the parts that we can put on the shelf to your Aptera.
Okay, so I think that's a very important point because this is so capital intensive to make these dies and to go through this process. They really didn't have time to iterate. They couldn't do like make a whole set of dies for testing various things. They basically had to make the production die right away. And so we have to really hope that they got it right the first time. There's kind of no room for error on this thing because they just don't have the money or the time to iterate this thing. They've been making these dies for like almost a year. And that's why I think it's really good that they partnered with CPC. CPC is very, very experienced in this. They've been doing CFSMC parts for a long time, and they know how to design these things, how to make them nest together. So they designed this in conjunction with CPC to make it manufacturable and to fit well and to have the structural properties that they wanted. So everything should fit together well. It's all been done in silico. And in terms of structural parts, that's probably something we understand very well in terms of modeling. So it should fit together well. But they basically have one shot at this. If there's something wrong with these dies, then they're not really going to be able to fix it. And so far, 4 out of the 6 dies have been validated. They are meeting the specs. And then the final part will be when they glue the thing completely together and get one complete body in carbon.
Already gone through a dimensional validation process here at CPC, so all of that's been sorted out.
It's amazing to see these parts come off the press. This is actually the 2 dies that produce our hood parts, and they're still warm even though they were producing parts yesterday.
We've just come off the machine and it's cooling off. We're going to show you one of the other pieces.
This is actually the roof structure for the Aptera. This is the lower die set, that's the upper die set, and these are the molds that actually come together to stamp out the roof of your Aptera.
We can't wait to share more about these production intent builds and what's to come in our validation phase. You can learn more about our PI builds and how they'll be tested and validated in our latest blog post. And that's not all that's happening to drive solar mobility forward. Right here at our headquarters and final assembly.
Okay, so they released a video showing them building these huge shelves. And later on, you'll see that these shelves are actually pretty full of production parts. These are obviously empty, but they're starting to fill these up. So production parts are coming in, and then Sarah's going to show you part of the solar production line. Obviously, this was a stage photo shoot, and they're not really building the things right now. But they do have a solar production facility there, and I will definitely try to check it out for you guys when I go down there later on this month.
Location, we're making the solar panels and batteries for our PI builds, 2 critical components of every solar electric vehicle. Hey guys, the team is preparing the lines and sourcing equipment for solar and battery manufacturing, which will take place here in San Diego, California. As you can see, more and more parts and components for your Aptera vehicles are arriving every day. When we launched Aptera as a solar mobility company, all we had was a dream and the will to do what others deemed impossible. But today, everything is different. We've built a strong team, designed a vehicle with...
Okay, so here you see definitely there's a lot more parts in the on the shelves. And this is some part from China. I can't read Chinese, so I don't know what this says. If anyone can read Chinese and can make this out, let me know what you guys think is in these boxes. The other ones are out of focus, so we have no idea what those are. But, this looks like these are like the parts they're going to put in those 16 production intent vehicles.
Majority of parts source. We've invented automotive grade curved solar panels, commissioned production tooling for Aptera's Bink, and begun validating our solar EV. We're closer than ever to delivering solar powered transportation to the world. And believe me, it is incredible to watch this all unfold. Solar mobility is really starting to happen, but it wouldn't be possible without all of you, our movement. Thank you for being a part of it. This unstoppable force that's fueled by our accelerators, our industry partners, ambassadors, shareholders, and the Aptera community at large. Together, we're changing transportation for good, and we're building a future where every journey is fully powered by the sun.
Okay, great. I thought that was a very substantive update. Great video. I think the marketing team did a good job there. And then here is the blog post, and this kind of gives a more structured view of what's happening here. You see here Chris and Steve at CPC looking over at the various body parts after they've been stamped out. And so these are the steps. Production of long lead time tools for Aptera's Bank. This has been completed for 4 out of the 6. And then production and validation, again, also completed for 4 out of the 6 major parts. Then bonding of all body parts to form Aptera's Bank. That will happen sometime in the next month or two. And then before the end of the year, they're hoping that completed bodies will be shipped to San Diego. And then that's when step 4 happens, and they start doing the full production intent builds where they put the battery pack, the powertrain, the interior, all that stuff in there. And then they're going to test this. And what are they going to test? They're going to test suspension and dampeners, brake systems, airbag calibration, thermal system. So this is something very important that they're going to have to do. You know, we've talked about the belly cooling and all that. So I'm sure they're going to test this on like fast charging. In Southern California, they're going to have access to deserts and high mountains. So cold weather, snow testing, that's going to be pretty easy to do, especially if they get this done in like January, February. There's a lot of snow in the mountains in Southern California at that time. High temperature testing is probably going to have to wait until March, April. And that, you know, by April, like Death Valley is already pretty hot. And by April, May, then, you know, Palm Springs, that area is going to be well over, you know, there's days when there's over 100 degree days in April already. And so then they can do the thermal testing. They'll test the powertrain and battery. That's where we're going to get real efficiency numbers. You know, we have not gotten the efficiency numbers. And the solar numbers, they, you know, someone asked a question about that at the ambassadors meeting. That's the one they've tested the most, and they're very confident about their solar numbers. What they don't know is the efficiency numbers. So the solar energy production numbers, they're pretty sure about that, but the efficiency numbers, that's all been done in silico and not in real world testing, and that's going to have to wait until the production intent builds are. So that's going to be very, very important information to know. I don't expect it to be very far off from their computerized modeling, but you know, nothing's as good as real world testing. And then they're going to do software integration. Then they are going to crash test these things. And that makes sense that you do all this validation first, because crash testing is going to be a destructive event. And you want to do the crash testing after everything else is done, after you've gotten the information to validate all the other systems. But they are going to crash test them and then test them for durability and reliability. And then the next step is manufacturing validation. So this crash testing and validation of the other system is probably going to take 3 to 4 months. So if you think like January, February, March to get the first builds built, and then 3 to 4 months from that, you're looking at kind of like August, September, and then they do manufacturing validation. That's where you validate the machine that makes the machine. And then the first production builds that go to customers, probably going to be in late 2024, as long as everything goes smoothly. Now, does anything ever go smoothly? Probably not. So I always like to give a little buffer. So probably looking at early 2025 for first customer deliveries. Tell me what you guys think. You think it's going to happen late 2024 or early 2025, or maybe even later than that? So that is where they're at. And I thought this was a great update. And I really applaud their commitment to do monthly updates from here on out. That was kind of Sarah's, at the beginning of the video, she said that they plan on doing monthly updates, which I think is great to keep everyone engaged and be very transparent about what's going on there. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.